The massive view screen flickered to life, casting a soft blue glow across the observation deck of the Viridian research vessel. Commander Roca leaned forward, his four-fingered hand gripping the edge of the control panel with a mixture of boredom and mild curiosity. Another routine planetary scan, another unremarkable human colony world. New horizons stretched below them, a planet that looked like countless others in the galactic database. Rocky terrain, scattered vegetation, and what appeared to be a standard military training facility. Roca's secondary eyes, the smaller pair located just above his primary vision sensors, began to scan the landscape with automated precision. Activate magnification, he muttered to his junior communications officer, Prin. The screen zoomed in, revealing a group of humans moving in what seemed to be some kind of training exercise. Roca couldn't help but chuckle. The humans looked so fragile. Their bodies were soft and unprotected, moving in patterns that seemed almost comical to his species' understanding of combat readiness. At the center of the training ground stood a woman who carried herself with unmistakable authority. HFY Park moved between groups of trainees, her voice cutting through the morning air with sharp, precise instructions. She wore simple training gear, dark pants, and a light jacket that did little to hide her muscular build. "Look at them," Roca said to Prin, his translator producing a sound between a laugh and a dismissive grunt. "They're performing some kind of physical ritual. No protective gear, no energy shields, no combat augmentations. How do they expect to survive?" The training ground was a picture of controlled chaos. Some trainees practiced what looked like ancient hand-to-hand combat techniques. Others were engaged in complex movement drills that seemed to focus on balance, flexibility, and precise body control. A group of younger trainees followed an instructor through what appeared to be a complicated series of strikes and defensive movements. Prin adjusted the scanning equipment, zooming in even closer. "Their muscle memory is quite impressive," he offered cautiously, knowing his commander had little patience for compliments about lesser species. Roca waved a hand dismissively. "Impressive. They're barely more developed than the training simulations we use for first-year cadets. Look at how slowly they move. Look at how vulnerable they are." What the Viridian commander didn't realize was that each movement was carefully calculated. HFY watched her students with an eagle eye, making small corrections, pushing them to understand not just the physical movements, but the philosophy behind each technique. One group practiced a series of throws and takedowns. Another worked on striking techniques that seemed to combine multiple martial arts disciplines. Some trainees moved with the fluid grace of dancers, while others looked more mechanical, but all were focused, all were learning. HFY noticed a trainee struggling with a complex movement. She walked over, demonstrated the technique with breathtaking speed and precision. The Interstellar Diplomatic Conference was not going well. Representatives from 100 different species filled the massive circular hall, their translation devices humming with a constant background noise of multiple languages and communication protocols. Commander Krell of the Viridian Collective stood at the central podium, his augmented body towering over the other delegates. His metallic skin reflected the hall's bright lights, and several mechanical implants pulsed with a soft blue glow. He was not a speaker known for subtlety or diplomacy. "Humans claim to be warriors," Krell announced, his voice booming through the translation systems. "But what proof do they have? We have seen their training. We have observed their so-called combat techniques. They are nothing more than children playing at warfare." In the human section of the conference, HFY Park sat perfectly still. Her eyes never left Krell, her body language calm but alert. Beside her, Dong Min Kim shifted slightly, a subtle movement that suggested barely contained energy. Krell continued his speech. "I challenge the humans to prove their combat worth. Let them demonstrate their fighting skills against the most advanced warriors of the Viridian Collective. We will show the galaxy the true meaning of combat superiority." The hall erupted in murmurs. Some alien species looked excited. Others seemed uncomfortable with such a direct challenge. The human delegation remained silent, their faces a mix of professional calm and carefully hidden emotions. Jaehua knew exactly what Krell was doing. This was more than a simple challenge. It was a diplomatic power play designed to humiliate humanity in front of the entire galactic community. She had seen such tactics before, in military briefings and diplomatic training sessions. After what seemed like an eternity, she stood up. Her movement was smooth, controlled, like a predator deciding whether to attack or wait. "We accept your challenge," Jaehua said simply. Her voice carried across the hall, cutting through the background noise like a knife. The translation systems picked up her words, rendering them in dozens of alien languages with perfect clarity. Krell looked surprised. He had expected resistance, arguments, perhaps even a refusal. Instead, here was a human, a woman, calmly accepting a challenge that most would have seen as impossible. "Select your team," Krell demanded. "4 of your best warriors. We will meet in the neutral arena, where no species has an advantage." Jaehua nodded. In her mind, she was already selecting her team. Dong Min Kim would be first. His wrestling skills were legendary among their training groups. Yun Su Li would bring traditional martial arts expertise. Min Ji Choi would add modern combat techniques to their arsenal. And if needed, she would fight herself. Later, in the private meeting rooms, Dong Min approached Jaehua with a concerned look. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "The Viridians are known for their technological enhancements. Our team will be fighting against warriors with built-in weapons, neural combat networks, and strength amplifiers." Jaehua's smile was calm but dangerous. "Technology is a tool," she replied, "not a replacement for skill, training, and human adaptability." The news spread quickly through human communication networks. Training facilities across multiple colony worlds began intense preparation. This was more than a fight. This was a chance to show the galaxy what humans could really do. Nobody knew it yet, but everything was about to change. The training facility looked different now. Gone was the casual atmosphere of routine practice. Now, every movement had purpose. Every breath was calculated. Jaehua stood in the center of the main training hall, surrounded by her chosen team. Dong Min Kim stretched his powerful muscles, warming up with calculated movements. Yun Su Li practiced a series of complex strikes that blended traditional martial arts with modern combat techniques. Min Ji Choi studied holographic displays of alien physiology, her eyes narrowed in concentration. "We are not just preparing to fight," Jaehua told her team. "We are preparing to teach a lesson." Their training was unlike anything the Viridian observers had seen before. It wasn't just about physical strength. It was about understanding, about adaptation, about turning limitations into advantages. Dong Min spent hours studying alien biomechanics. As a former Olympic-level wrestler, he knew that every body had weak points. Every movement had a counter. The Viridian augmentations might look impressive, but they would also have predictable patterns. "Look here," he would say, pointing to complex diagrams. "See how their joint structures work. See how their neural networks might create blind spots in their reaction times." Yun Su focused on something deeper. He practiced forms that looked like ancient dance, but were actually sophisticated combat techniques passed down through generations. His movements were fluid, unpredictable. He taught the team how to read an opponent's body language, how to create moments of hesitation, how to turn an enemy's strength against them. Min Ji brought modern tactical training. She studied the latest reports on Viridian combat technology. She created simulation after simulation, testing different approaches. Her computer was filled with thousands of potential scenarios, each one analyzed and broken down. Jaehua watched it all. She had been a combat instructor for over 2 decades. She knew that true training was about more than physical skills. It was about building a team that could think as one, move as one, adapt as one. They trained for 16 hours each day. Physical conditioning in the morning, technical training in the afternoon, mental preparation in the evening. They studied alien languages, alien cultures, alien fighting styles. They learned to predict, to adapt, to overcome. The Viridian observers continued to watch, their sophisticated scanning equipment capturing every moment. But they saw only the surface. They saw humans pushing their bodies. They missed the deeper training happening before their eyes. They did not see the discipline. They did not see the years of practice. They did not see the human potential that was about to change everything. In the simulation rooms, holographic enemies moved with advanced technological precision. Dongmin learned to use their own technology against them. A slight shift in body weight could turn a powerful strike into a complete miss. Yun-Su discovered how to create gaps in their defense that seemed impossible. Min-Ji developed custom training programs that pushed the team beyond their previous limits. She created scenarios that forced them to think faster, move smarter, adapt quicker. We are not just fighting for ourselves, Jaehua would remind them. We are fighting for every human who has ever been underestimated, every person who has been told they are not good enough. The team understood. This was more than a combat challenge. This was a statement about human potential. As the days passed, they became something more than individuals. They became a single unit, a living, breathing system of combat excellence. The Viridian Collective had no idea what was coming. The neutral arena hung in deep space like a giant metal flower. Its design was a marvel of galactic engineering, a massive circular structure that could adjust gravity, atmosphere, and environmental conditions to accommodate any species in the known universe. Millions of viewers from hundreds of planets watched through live broadcast systems. This was more than a fight. This was a moment that could change interspecies relations forever. The human team entered first. Jaehua led the way, with Dongmin, Yun-Su, and Min-Ji following behind her. They wore simple dark uniforms that looked almost plain compared to the technological marvels of their opponents. No heavy armor, no visible weapons. Just 4 humans walking with calm confidence. On the other side of the arena, the Viridian team emerged. They were a sight designed to intimidate. Each warrior stood nearly 3 meters tall, their bodies a mix of organic tissue and advanced technological enhancements. Metallic plates covered key muscle groups. Glowing neural network implants pulsed along their spines. Integrated weapon systems created visible bumps under their skin. Commander Krill's voice boomed through the arena's communication system. "The rules are simple," he announced. "Hand-to-hand combat only. No external weapons. No additional technological assistance beyond what is already integrated into the warriors' bodies." The arena floor was a marvel of adaptive technology. Its surface could change texture, hardness, and friction in milliseconds. Holographic projections could create instant terrain features. Gravity could shift with a simple command. The first Viridian warrior stepped forward. His name was Zorn, and he was their most advanced combat unit. Half of his body was pure machine, with reaction times measured in microseconds. Targeting systems built into his eyes could predict human movement patterns before the human even thought of moving. Dongmin would be the first human to fight. As he walked to the center of the arena, the audience could see the difference. Zorn was massive, a walking weapon of technological perfection. Dongmin looked almost small in comparison, a normal human body against a technological marvel. But those who knew Dongmin knew something important. He was not just a fighter. He was a wrestler who had spent years understanding how bodies move, how force works, how to use an opponent's strength against them. The arena's referee, a neutral AI system designed to ensure fair combat, gave the start signal. For a moment, nothing happened. Zorn's targeting systems lit up, calculating 1,000 potential attack vectors. His neural networks processed movement predictions faster than any organic brain could think. Dongmin just watched, calm, still, waiting. Then everything changed. The first strike came so fast that most viewers missed it. Zorn lunged forward, his augmented muscles capable of generating force that could punch through solid metal. But Dongmin was already moving, not away from the attack, but toward it. What happened next would be studied by combat experts for years to come. In that moment, Technology met human training. Augmentation met understanding. Pure computational power met years of dedicated practice. The galaxy watched, holding its collective breath. The challenge had begun. The first fight happened so quickly that most viewers needed replay systems to understand what had just occurred. Dong Min moved like water. His wrestling background was more than just a skill. It was a language of motion. Zorn's technological systems tried to predict his movement, but Dong Min did something unexpected. He didn't fight like a machine. He fought like a human, unpredictable, fluid, adaptive. When Zorn lunged forward, Dong Min didn't step back. He stepped sideways, using the smallest possible movement. His hand caught Zorn's attacking arm, not with strength, but with precise placement. A twist, a moment of leverage, and suddenly, the massive technological warrior was flying through the air. Zorn crashed into the arena floor. His augmented body should have absorbed the impact easily, but Dong Min had targeted something the technology couldn't predict: balance. The first throw lasted less than 3 seconds. Viewers across the galaxy watched in stunned silence. The Viridian observers in their control room couldn't believe their scanning systems. How could a human, a simple, unaugmented human, defeat their most advanced combat unit so quickly? Commander Roca leaned forward, his secondary eyes blinking in confusion. "Replay that," he demanded. The next fighter was different. A Viridian warrior named Krell, with a body that looked more machine than organic. Neural networks covered his entire body. Integrated weapon systems created visible lines across his skin. Yun Su stepped forward. Where Dong Min used wrestling, Yun Su used something else entirely. His movements looked almost like a dance. Traditional martial arts mixed with modern combat techniques. He moved in ways that confused the most advanced tracking systems. Krell's weapon systems tried to lock onto Yun Su, but there was nothing to lock onto. Every time the targeting systems thought they had found a pattern, Yun Su changed. A step here, a twist there. Small movements that made perfect tracking impossible. "He's not fighting," Minji whispered to Jadwa. "He's solving a puzzle." And that was exactly what Yun Su was doing. Each movement was a question. Each step was an answer. He was finding the gaps in the technological defense. The moments between calculations. The tiny spaces where a human could move that a machine could not predict. When Krell finally attacked, Yun Su was already moving. Not away from the attack, not into the attack, but around the attack. His hand touched Krell's arm for just a moment. And suddenly the massive warrior was off balance. Another throw. Another victory. 2 fights. 2 human victories. In the audience areas, species from 100 different worlds watched in growing amazement. The humans were doing something impossible. They were beating technological perfection with something else. Something that couldn't be measured by scanners or predicted by computers. Commander Krell's face grew darker with each passing moment. This was not how the fight was supposed to go. The humans were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to be easy to defeat. But humans had a way of surprising everyone. Jaehua watched the arena, her face calm. She knew this was more than a fight. This was a lesson, a demonstration of human potential. The next fight was about to begin. Minji would face the most technologically advanced Viridian warrior yet. And the galaxy was watching. The third fight was different. Minji Choi stepped into the arena with a calm that seemed to confuse her opponent. The Viridian warrior facing her was named Nexus, a living weapon designed to be the perfect combat machine. Half of his body was pure technological marvel, with integrated combat systems that could calculate millions of potential attack scenarios per second. But Minji was not impressed by technology. She had spent months studying every piece of information about Viridian combat systems. She knew their weaknesses better than they knew their own strengths. Where others saw an unbeatable machine, she saw a complex puzzle waiting to be solved. The arena floor shifted slightly. Holographic projections created subtle changes in terrain, designed to test the adaptability of the fighters. Most warriors would rely on their technological systems to adjust. Minji relied on something else, human intuition. Nexus moved first. His attack was a mathematical perfection, a strike calculated to have a 99.987% chance of success. His neural networks predicted Minji's movement before she even thought of moving. But humans are not machines. Minji stepped, not where the computer predicted, but somewhere entirely unexpected. Her movement was a combination of 3 different martial arts techniques, blended in a way no computer could predict. She wasn't fighting. She was telling a story with her body. The first few moments of the fight were a blur of motion. Nexus's technological systems worked overtime, trying to track Minji's movements, but she was everywhere and nowhere. A touch here, a redirection there, small movements that broke every prediction. Commander Roka watched the fight with growing confusion. His scanning systems showed him the data, thousands of lines of information about attack vectors, movement patterns, potential outcomes. But the data meant nothing against what was happening in the arena. Minji understood something fundamental that the Viridian warriors did not. Combat was not about perfect calculations. It was about adaptation, about reading the moment, about understanding that the space between movements was just as important as the movements themselves. When Nexus launched his most advanced attack, a combination strike that should have been impossible to counter, Minji was already moving. Her hand touched his arm, not with force, with precision, with understanding. And suddenly, the most advanced combat machine in the Viridian collective was falling. The arena went silent. In the control rooms, aliens from 100 different species watched in disbelief. The humans were doing something impossible. They were beating technological perfection with something that couldn't be measured by scanners. Jaehua watched carefully. Each fight was more than a combat challenge. It was a lesson about human potential, about the power of training, about the magic that happens when skill meets understanding. Nexus tried to get up. His technological systems were already recalculating, trying to find a way to turn the fight around. But Minji had already won, not through brute force, not through superior technology, but through something much more powerful: understanding. As the referee declared the match, the galaxy held its breath. One more fight remained, and everyone knew that something incredible was about to happen. The final fight would change everything. Commander Krell stepped into the arena, his entire body a weapon of technological perfection. He was the Viridian Collective's most advanced warrior, the one they believed would restore their pride and prove their superiority. Jaehua Park walked opposite him. She wore the same simple training clothes she had worn during their earlier diplomatic confrontation. No armor, no visible technology, just a human ready to fight. The entire galaxy watched. Millions of species held their collective breath. This was more than a fight. This was a moment that would define interspecies relationships for generations to come. Krell's body was a marvel of technological engineering. Neural networks covered his spine. Targeting systems glowed in his eyes. Muscle groups were enhanced with synthetic materials that could generate force beyond any natural biological limit. Every part of him was designed to be the perfect fighting machine. Jaehua was different. Her strength came from something else entirely. Years of training. Decades of understanding human movement. A lifetime of learning how bodies work, how forces interact, how combat is more than just physical strength. The arena's artificial environment adjusted. Gravity shifted slightly. The floor became a perfect neutral surface, neither too soft nor too hard. Krell attacked first. His movement was a mathematical calculation of perfect efficiency. Targeting systems predicted every possible human response. His strike was designed to be impossible to dodge, impossible to counter. But humans are not machines. Jaehua moved differently. Not against the attack, not away from the attack, but with the attack. Her body understood something that no technological system could predict: the flow of motion. Her hand touched Krell's arm, not with force, with understanding. The first moments of the fight were a dance. Krell's technological systems worked overtime, trying to predict Jaguar's movements. But she wasn't moving like a computer would expect. She was moving like a human, unpredictable, fluid, adaptive. Every time Krell's targeting systems locked onto her, she was already moving somewhere else, not through speed, but through understanding. Commander Roca watched from the observation deck, his secondary eyes blinking in confusion. The data streams showed him impossible information. How could a single human fight like this? Jaguar was teaching a lesson with her body. Combat was not about perfect calculations. It was about adaptation, about reading the moment, about understanding that the space between movements was just as important as the movements themselves. When Krell launched his most advanced attack, a combination strike that should have been mathematically impossible to counter, Jaguar was already moving, not away, not against, but with. Her movements told a story of human potential, a story of training, a story of understanding that went beyond simple physical combat. The arena became a classroom, and the lesson was about something more than fighting. It was about the human spirit. With a final, precise movement, Jaguar broke through Krell's technological defenses, not with brute force, not with superior technology, but with something much more powerful: understanding. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as Krell fell, the most advanced warrior of the Viridian Collective, defeated by a human, by a woman, by someone they had believed was weak. Something fundamental had just changed, and everyone knew it. The silence after the fight was louder than any sound. Diplomatic halls across the galaxy buzzed with conversation. News networks broadcasted the fight from 100 different angles. What had just happened? How could 4 humans defeat the most advanced warriors of the Viridian Collective? Commander Roca sat in the review chamber, surrounded by high-ranking officials from multiple species. His data screen showed every moment of the fight, broken down into millions of data points. But numbers could not explain what they had just witnessed. "It doesn't make sense," one of the alien representatives said. Their technology was perfect. Their calculations were flawless. Jaguar and her team sat in a simple meeting room. No celebrations, no dramatic speeches, just 4 people who understood something fundamental about human potential. "We didn't win through technology," Dong Min explained to the diplomatic representatives who came to interview them. "We won through understanding, through training, through adaptability." Min Ji pulled up holographic displays showing their training methods. She showed how they studied movement, how they understood that combat was more than just physical strength. It was about reading moments, about understanding how bodies move, about finding the spaces between movements. The Viridian Collective was forced to admit something they had never considered before. Their technological approach to combat had a fatal flaw. They had become so dependent on calculations that they had forgotten the most important thing in any fight: the ability to adapt. Diplomatic meetings began to change. Species that had previously looked down on humans now wanted to learn their training methods. Military academies across the galaxy requested information about human combat techniques. "Humans are not stronger," Yun Su would explain in the training sessions that followed. "Humans are more adaptable. We understand that true strength comes from learning, from understanding, from being able to change." Commander Krell, defeated and humiliated, was removed from his position. The Viridian Collective's approach to combat training would need to be completely redesigned. Representatives from dozens of alien species came to observe human training facilities. They wanted to understand what they had seen. How could humans do something that seemed impossible? JY knew the answer was simple. Training was not about creating perfect warriors. It was about creating thinking fighters. People who could adapt, who could learn, who could understand that the most important weapon was not in the body, but in the mind. The news spread quickly. Humans were no longer seen as a young, inexperienced species. They were now viewed as something else entirely, a species with potential beyond anything previously imagined. In training facilities across human colonies, young people watched recordings of the fight. They saw something more than a combat demonstration. They saw a lesson about human potential. Commander Roca studied the fight recordings over and over. His advanced scanning systems broke down every moment. But technology could not explain the magic of human movement, the way they could turn limitations into strengths, the way they could find solutions where machines only saw problems. Something fundamental had changed in the galaxy, and everyone knew it. Humans were no longer just another species. They were something more. 5 years after the fight that changed everything, the galaxy looked different. HFY Park stood on the observation deck of the International Diplomatic Station, watching ships from 100 different species move through space. Her team, Dongmin, Yun-Su, and Minji, were now leading a new kind of diplomatic training program. They weren't teaching combat anymore. They were teaching something much more important: understanding. Alien species now came from across the galaxy to learn human training methods, not just for fighting, but for problem solving, for adaptation, for understanding that true strength comes from the ability to learn and change. The Viridian Collective had completely transformed. Their old approach of technological perfection was gone. Now they studied human methods of training. They learned that technology was a tool, not a replacement for human creativity. It was never about beating them, HFY told a group of young diplomats from different species. It was about showing them a different way of thinking. Training centers had been established on multiple planets. Humans taught not just combat techniques, but ways of thinking. How to read a moment, how to understand movement, how to find solutions in the spaces between problems. Commander Roca, who had once laughed at human training, now led a research team studying human adaptive techniques. His reports were read across the galaxy. Humans had shown something fundamental. That adaptability was more important than any technological advantage. The fight had become more than a moment of combat. It was a turning point in galactic history. Alien species began to see humans differently. No longer were they a young, inexperienced species to be overlooked. They were now viewed as problem solvers, as adaptable thinkers who could find solutions where others saw only challenges. Diplomatic meetings changed. Military strategies changed. Even educational systems across multiple planets began to incorporate human-inspired training methods. Dongmin now ran a global training center that taught adaptive thinking. His classes were filled with students from dozens of different species. They learned how to move, how to think, how to understand that strength was more than physical power. Minji developed computer systems that could learn and adapt in ways no previous technology could. Her work was changing how artificial intelligence was understood across the galaxy. Yun-Su taught a philosophy of movement that went beyond simple combat. He showed how understanding oneself was the first step to understanding others. The galaxy had learned something important. Technology was not the ultimate answer. Human potential, the ability to learn, to adapt, to understand, was the real power. In her quiet moments, HFY reflected on the journey. That single fight had been about more than proving human capabilities. It had been about showing that true strength comes from understanding, from learning, from being able to change. Alien ambassadors now sought her advice. Military leaders studied her training methods. Young people from across the galaxy watched recordings of that historic fight, understanding that it was about something much bigger than combat. The stars outside seemed to shine a little brighter. The universe felt a little smaller, and humans had shown that their greatest technology was not found in machines, but in the human spirit of continuous improvement. Something had changed, and nothing would be the same again.